Welcome back to Blooms and Bicycles. As we pedal into the springtime, we journey past trees in our local areas which are now dusted in hazes of pinks and whites. With the branches bare from the previous season until just recently, they are now gradually graced with the much-loved blossom flower once more. Without the green foliage of summertime, there's something really undistracting about this composition of just branch and flower together, which allows for a real appreciation of the deep mahogany tones in the branches against the contrast and delicacy of the pale pinks or whites in those tiny flowers which once in bloom become as delicate as tissue paper. And although their tiny petals would be well outsized by the grandeur of the other flowering varieties, every year when they do bloom in their thousands upon just one tree, their ability to captivate the masses across the world during blossom season shows just how much impact can be created when small things come together to create the larger collective. In this tutorial today, we'll be sharing with you how to construct the large letterbox flowers from the Blossom Season flower collection. We've already prepared our vase today. However, if you would like to understand what to do to prepare your water vessel to ensure your flowers last for as long as possible, you can always refer to our flower care video, which can be found via the link in the description box below. So to start with, we'll create our grid using the strongest of stems, as we always do. And in this collection, that is a selection of eucalyptus and wax flower, both of which are in very cool green tones. And this wax flower comes with a beautiful, delicate, very tiny flower head, and also the bud itself before it opens is so pretty. So the reason we've gone for the eucalyptus, which you might notice is the same as what we did in the Valentine's collection last month, with it being blossom season and with the peach blossom which is to come, which we'll show you shortly, the flowers have a very cool blue undertone, and because they are the focal point, that has gone on to dictate the other flowers which have been chosen, all of which are also in the cooler shades of pinks and whites with that same blue undertone. So to complement this, that's why we've gone with this greenery in this collection this month also. So to start with our wax flower, as with many other previous tutorials, we'll show you how to make the most of one stem by splitting it off into a couple of different pieces. So when you find a shoot, you just cut on an angle just above it, and removing any of the needles which will fall under the watermark before adding it in, we'll just start to create a cross section of branches which naturally begin to knit together when you weave them in between each other. And just finding gaps that have been established by the branches so far, we'll continue to introduce our foliage in a way that will offer support to the other stems to follow. And we do have a few smaller pieces left from what has been trimmed away. These will look perfect towards the front of the vase as finishing touches. So taking the heaviest stems, first of all, with this vase, it's best to actually position your hyacinth to begin with. So with this being much shorter than the other stems, we'll actually position this towards the front, and we'll actually use the shape of the vase to its advantage and place it so that it rests on top of the grid in such a way where the base of the stem is actually up the side of the vase. So now to take the next heaviest stems, which are the chrysanthemums, of which we get these beautiful two varieties. And honestly, just to say, it's took for me to become a florist to truly fall in love with the chrysanthemum. I only ever thought before being a florist there was one or two varieties. However, now that I have the benefit of being able to explore all that there is, I have so much respect for chrysanthemums more than I ever used to, because the different shapes and sizes and colours and varieties is unbelievable. And every time you find a new variety, you're just in awe all over again. And here we are. I know I said the same thing back in November, as I've probably said in January, but this white chrysanthemum, look at the size of that. It will come with a net over the bud when it's transported to you just to protect it. So if you gently pull away the net, it will all of a sudden go into a firework and end up like this. It's gorgeous. So with this piece, it's quite straight and tall, and that will be perfect off towards the back. So using the gaps that have been created by the wax flower so far, allow it to be positioned in the way that you see in your mind's eye. And now that we've got one chrysanthemum sort of towards the back and on the right hand side, it'd be very nice to counterbalance this by introducing the other chrysanthemum towards the front on the left. And now to take our next heavy stem, which is this gorgeous ranunculus. Talk about heaven on earth. Have you ever seen a flower more beautiful than this? It's incredible. It almost looks like fondant icing. It doesn't look real, but I tell you something, there is no need for AI when Mother Nature produces things like this. They are gorgeous. And we definitely want to make sure this is fully visible. So maybe introducing this, again, midway to or towards the back because it's a nice tall stem. We'll just hold it in position, higher up the grid, and again, maybe just allowing it to sit up the side of the vase so you really get to see it for what it is. Now to take our spray roses, of which you'll receive two varieties. One in this more traditional frilly garden design, which has a more tangy corally pink tone to it, and then this softer pastel pink coloured one, which is more of the traditional swirl in the flower head. So it might actually be nice to introduce this larger spray rose towards the back where we've currently got this negative void. And as you introduce new stems, if you find other pieces do move, you can just adjust them back or just leave them to go in the way that they fall. Depends on how much time you have in your day, I suppose. But that's part of the joy of flower arranging anyway, the trial and error of it all. So now to add our other spray rose on the opposing side. Again, we just want to make sure it's not dominated by the greenery, and actually the greenery complements it and supports it. And now to add this gorgeous Scabiosa, again as beautiful as the ranunculus, totally different in texture and style. This is much more frilly, as you can see, but still in them cool pink tones with that blue undertone running throughout, which will all make sense when we finally get to the blossom stems at the end. It looks very frilly and like these are just petals, but I'm sure Roberta is going to do a really good job of coming in and focusing close up on the flower head to show how actually this is hundreds of tiny flowers clustered together that create this overall effect. Spectacular again. And now to add our final two stems, this Lysimachia, which comes in this gorgeous snowy white, and this beautiful Anemone, which when in bloom is also white with a darker centre to it. It hasn't actually quite opened in time for filming today, but at least this shows how fresh the flowers will actually be when they come to you. They are as fresh as anything. And actually, even in bud form, the green really complements the green that you find towards the centre of the Scabiosa flower anyway, so all is well. And again, just to find any negative spaces and being mindful to position things in those spaces, that helps build out that natural fan effect that we talk about. Always working with the grid to allow those unusual angles to be held. And I just love how unusually shaped these flower heads become. This looks like it could actually be a flower that's drooping, but it's not. It is really fresh because it actually holds this S-shaped form when it's held upright as much as it does any other way. So that quirk is gorgeous in its own right, and again is something we really want to make sure there is space to show off. So I think really this would be nice positioned in the very centre, and we just need maybe to take another inch away, finding that same gap we put it in just before. so that we really see how that naturally sweeps off in its own way. And now with our final small pieces of greenery, we'll just add these in around the front. Again, because we're looking to go with that natural burst effect, allowing them to sit very high up the side of the vase also works really well. And here for the final focal point pieces. So here they are, the peach blossom stems. Absolutely stunning. And we put a lot of them in, each item from this flower collection, just to really celebrate the season that we're in now, because it's such a lovely time of year, isn't it? And with some of these, as you can see, they have opened up into flowers. So if that's the case, maybe trying to position things in a way which allows for those flowers to be fully visible is a nice thing to do. Again, just to really embrace the sentiment of the season. And just very gently take your time to add in your branches. So the final two pieces will go towards the front, so I've just trimmed those down so they can be introduced at a lower point. And they are so delicate, the buds on these peach blossom, and that is why we add them at the very end. So when you're holding them to add them into the vase, maybe just be mindful to hold them at a point in the branch where there are no flowers. And then you never know, a couple of those buds might just well bloom into a few flowers for you. And now finally, just to come around the front to see if there are any negative voids. If there are, we then use the Asparagus Fern to fill these voids by just gently placing it in the grid and wrapping it around the flowers where you see fit. As we said in last month's collection, this Asparagus Fern doesn't actually have to be in water, so you can just allow it to float like a cloud, if you will, around the cross section of knitted stems in the grid. And it's a really beautiful material to work with actually in Floristry, because it is so flexible and because it's not very needy either. It's not a very thirsty plant, so it really adds a very whimsical, delicate edge to any flower design that it's introduced to. So we'll just come around the front one more time, because arranging flowers from the back is a little bit more tricky than you might think. So maybe this Scabiosa could just be slightly adjusted to give it some room and make sure it doesn't overlap the chrysanthemum. And I think we're thereabouts. So now that we know where all of the stems need to be, we'll come along and we'll fill up the vase right to the top and make sure everything is submerged underwater. And there you have it, the large letterbox flowers from the Blossom Season flower collection. I hope you enjoy the start of spring and happy blossom season. See you next time.